In this episode, we chat with artist, artistic director, designer, and art professor Andrea Slusarski. We explore how weaving your personal creative passions with your art and professional practice can craft meaningful connections and opportunities. We also gain context that allows us to understand the sentence, "That was a steezy snurfer." Let's get into it. Okay, now we do our vocal warm-up, obviously.
Me. Yeah. I like when didn't Carol Burnett like scream?
Is that how you warm up? I could scream today.
I know, but I like to be outside for my outside voice.
Oh, can't relate. Welcome to Social Objects, the podcast where we dive into the lives and shared stories of the objects we make, use, and cherish. My name is Dr. Medill, and today we're joined by the Master Slew. Would you like to introduce yourself for us briefly?
Hi, yeah. I'm Slew, or Professor Slew, or Andrea Slusarski. That's where Slew comes from. I am a professor of art education at REMCAD, where we teach together. I'm also a visual artist and a ski and snowboard designer.
So you don't
Put it briefly.
wears many hats.
Yes, lots.
If you don't mind, for our audio listeners, I think your object is next to you. So if you could introduce your object to us and describe it visually.
Yes, the object that I'm bringing is a Coalition snowboard. So it's an actual product. I hold it in my hands. I ride it on snow. I created the artwork for it, and visually, if you're listening, it's a small to medium-sized snowboard because that's me. I'm a small to medium-sized gal. And it is got a whole lot of creative elements on my design that include, some green lines, some hot pink writing, some bold shapes and colors with white line work on top of a picture from the Hubble Space Telescope of our universe.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How did this particular object, I mean, you said you did the artwork for it, so how did this come to fruition?
So this object is the second board design I've done with this company. So, when things come to fruition in a product side, there's a whole background years of like art creation and collaboration with the company, and then creating the files that then get sent to the manufacturer. Our skis and snowboards, I work for Coalition Snow, so I am their creative director. But when I first did this, I was just a hired artist. So I was, almost given a like homework assignment to design a board design that went with their collection. And they really they really trust me a lot as an artist. So I get to kind of pitch my ideas and think about what do I want to snowboard on and put that onto the design. So that's how it came to fruition. But this is the snowboard that I actually ride. So it's an object that I use. And I had, some really cool connections with it before this one came to place. I've been snowboarding since I was a teenager, and I've been looking at snowboard art. So I feel like the fruition of this could go real far back in sort of my creative process and my creative interests. But more specifically, it was working with the company, collaborating, doing the art process thing, and then delivering something that then gets to go be made into a thing.
Yeah, totally. I do want to pivot.
Okay.
A little more context. You mentioned did you say you identify as you're a snowboard ski instructor or a ski instructor?
I'm a designer.
But you had three things in your intro: professor,
visual artist, and designer.
And designer.
Yeah.
Okay. this is a leading question, and that's
Okay.
because
Okay.
and obviously I creep on you on social media, and I have, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, my snow experience, like going down hills on snow, is probably strictly sledding,
Okay, good.
and like by force. So, how would you grade yourself in terms of like your expertise in the field of snowboarding and snow sports?
Well, I just love it. It's one of my biggest passions. Uh, it's something that I've done my entire, sideways sports. I was a big wakeboarder growing up in the Midwest. Snowboards were a great transition. I think I was like 12 or 13 when I started snowboarding. It's what led me to move to Colorado. I've faced a lot of my life decisions around being able to snowboard. So with just like time alone, like time spent doing it, I have gone way past my 10 years of what it takes, to quote unquote get mastery of something. Snowboarding is cool sport. It's like a great way to get outside. It's a great way for me to just, I don't know, it helps me connect so much to myself and to, just being in nature and like my body. Like there are a lot of things that go into being a creative, and I think being able to connect with yourself physically is a big thing of that. And for me, it's snowboarding. For other people, it's going for a walk or a hike or knitting, right?
Like slow, something slow,
It's
yes.
something slow. And I really like to go fast downhill. It helps me really like get out of my head. It helps me like center myself, and all of those are like really good places to be for me as a visual artist and as a teacher. It's like kind of like my little connection with myself. So I like to think that I'm pretty good at snowboarding. I try to keep it really safe. Safer, I'm learning as I get older. And I just think going out there and having fun however you want to outside, like that's what I think is the most important thing. For me, it's snowboarding. And it could be something else for others. But yeah, I feel pretty good at snowboarding. I want to do it until I'm an old lady.
Ah, I love that. Can't relate. I'm
Yeah.
terrified. Um, but I think it's so cool. And
Thanks.
I love that it's something that you already kind of connected to, like your art practice or your practice as a human, right? And existing in a world that's, these are my words, you can have your own words, like
Yeah.
chaotic, right? Like something to decompress, and how important that is in any process, but the artistic process especially. And so when we go back to this board, this object you have behind you,
Mhm.
how did kind of that process of decompression or getting space for yourself as a maker play into the visuals of this piece we're looking at, or did it?
Yeah, that's a cool question. Because I really do think that getting outside and moving is so important to my overall creative process. And more specifically on this board, these white lines that, like, let's see if I can get it into focus. Like up here, these are actual mountains that I've been to.
Wow.
And these are actual drawings that I've done in my sketchbook. So when I'm snowboarding and I'm outside, kind of connecting with myself, catch that. Uh, whoops for the listeners. When I'm out there, I'm bringing my sketchbook with me. I always have. I carry around little 3-inch field notes, sketchbooks, and a Sharpie marker. It's super easy. It's in my bib pocket, so it's literally like right here on my chest.
Mhm.
And I take that out and I draw. Like there are lots of ways I think artists connect to create. I think that connection and my teaching, right, in my words, like and Karita Kent's words and lots of art teachers that I like to follow, when we can find ways to connect things, whether they're objects or being outside, to how we see the world, which I think is our creativity and what we want to bring to it. Um, that's your fuel for coming up with ideas, like right, like
Mhm.
being an artist never stops. You're never like, oh, I've made it, or oh, I don't need to come up with ideas anymore. So this design specifically, I kind of came up with my intentions of what I wanted to create, what did I want to say with this board design. But, some of the last details on there were there when I was out snowboarding 2 years before I made this.
Hmm.
So it's, signing up for a process as a creative is like paying attention, and I'm doing that drawing out in nature. And then I'm also thinking about that drawing when I'm in my studio.
Mhm.
And then I'm digitizing it so it fits in the design for a snowboard. But it still has this like really rich connection of like, yeah, that was when I was in the high Sierras in California. And that's my home mountain at Arapahoe Basin. And no one who buys this snowboard is going to know that. I think with all artwork, we don't know all the things all the time.
Mhm.
And so that's okay because like I'm still putting my heart and my experience into my art that goes onto this. And the viewer or the consumer, is gonna think, oh, sick board design. They're not like they're gonna know that it's a good design, but they're not gonna exactly know that it's like, oh, well, I climbed up that mountain, drew that in my sketchbook, and
Yeah.
it was epic day with my friends, and those feelings and those reflections are what led me back to my studio to work on the design.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Can you speak a little bit more about, I guess, just the logistics of the process of getting an idea on a board? You mentioned, or I'm assuming there's things you have to consider, like the shape of the board in terms of like your visual story. Like, can you walk us through that a little bit? And more of the, I don't want to say technical, but more of like the business side of, you mentioned you have to speak to a manufacturer and you have to like that seems like a detail, I'll say from my own experience, right, with museums and stuff. I'm really into like what goes into making the meat. That's a gross way to put it, and I hate that I said that. And I should be more eloquent, but I'm not. But it's that behind the scenes, right? Like we have this product that you've created that's beautiful, but I think in the context of RimCAD and our students, the process part probably is a little behind the scenes or behind the curtain, right?
Yeah, okay. So you have my head spinning, especially when you
Good.
bring up like our students and like where our students may be from.
Yeah.
And what I will say is I'm gonna back it up to like before, I even thought making a snowboard design was a possibility.
Mhm.
It was just a dream.
Yeah.
And when you are a creative and you work on your skill set and you have a skill set with your art making.
Mhm.
And I teach art students, so I know that we all have our own unique skill set. We're our own unique expression or way we crop stuff together. That's what's cool about art.
Yeah.
And being an art teacher, honestly, like I'm just surrounded by like fresh ideas all the time. That's inspiring. Once you start thinking about how am I going to do this? How do I want to do this? Like, I don't have a teacher giving me an assignment. I've graduated. I have these skill sets. What do I want to do? Like, you have to ask yourself those things as a creative.
Totally.
And I was like, I think of, that's one little baby slew that's early 20s, has a, kind of starting portfolio. I really thought about what were my dreams? What would I be like absolutely stoked to create art for?
Mhm.
And then I'm going to hone in there. I'm going to go meet those people who have the ski and snowboard companies. I'm going to go to their events. I live in Denver. There's lots of ski films, there's lots of community, right? Like you find your community as a creative because it should feel good. You should feel excited by your community. And that's where it really started for me is I'm a big snowboarder. I knew who I wanted to like make friends with, who I wanted to like be inspired by. So I was already always consuming the snowboard culture, the films and the art and the visuals and the fun. But think about like where you want to go. Like think about who your community is and who you want to make art for, and then let that drive you. So then that got me building my portfolio, thinking about how I worked with different brands, and then eventually led me to Coalition Snow, which then I did a couple board designs with them. So like one snowboard a winter.
Wow.
And then now, and then this winter I'm the full creative director. So I like took over the big thing and I did the whole series and I worked with other artists. But it really started with like figuring out intentionally what do you want to do with your art making? And then like how you make the meat is really fun and collaborative. So when I was just a sign-on artist, I was approached by the creative director and you're given boundaries. There's a size constraint.
Mhm.
I think snowboards are easier, they're bigger, but if you're a ski designer, you got limited real estate. Also, like you have to think about where the boots go. You don't want to have like art in specific spots.
Mhm.
So you gotta like my experience as a snowboarder also helped me like know how am I gonna make this work, and I kind of know where my feet are gonna be and the direction it's gonna go, and so then it really started with me then throwing some concepts back to the creative director, chatting with her, going back and forth. Um, it's fun. It's kind of like you're back in school. You're collaborating, so people are showing you like what works, what doesn't, and you want that when you get older. Like for our students, they're like, "Oh, I get this all the time." It's like, well, then you get to a point where you're like, "Can anyone say anything?"
Yeah.
And then once we design out a concept, I sort of go through the creative process of how to make that. Like this board specifically has watercolor elements to it, so I did some actual painting that I
Wow.
was able to pull into the design. So I had to like kind of work through some stuff and then create that final big, it's a huge Illustrator file. And those get sent to our manufacturer over in Japan, which is this super cool family owned and operated ski and snowboard manufacturing company. They've been around for like over 100 years. I've been really fortunate to be able to like, meet them, and yeah, it's just a fun community. So then like those get sent in September.
Okay.
And then it's not until, 6 months later that you actually get to see the like depth of the example.
Mhm.
And then it's August and September. Now we're starting to like promote next winter. So
Okay.
that artwork that you'll see for this winter was created almost 2 years ago.
From your like lens, hat, whatever, how we want to phrase it, as an artist, do trends, like visual trends, inform these, or how can they inform them if you're working 2 years ahead of, like, I don't know. What do you think about that? Or are you just like, no, I'm gonna do my style?
It's Yeah, it's really fun. I try not to get too caught up on trends myself because it is so ahead of the time.
Yeah.
The one thing that like sometimes it hits, and like the thing that like cracks me up is like if you notice on this board design, it's got like the hot pink lettering.
Yeah.
It also has this like really baller hot pink base that like screams like I like this color because it actually reflects off the white of the snow. So when you're
Punctuation.
snowboarding, you get like this like bright pink coming.
Yeah.
Um, I submitted that before Barbie, and then Barbie came out, and it was like one of those like, look who's a creative genius, and knew hot pink was gonna hit.
And you have the green, right? Wasn't green a moment too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you can't really do that. I think with me, I set out more to make good art,
Hmm.
and with the lineup each winter, the company really values like creating like an art show. So like they want all the pieces to talk together. So that's kind of fun when you can see them all lined up that my role as creative director is I sent a color palette to the artist.
Okay.
And so to kind of keep us all aligned, we're going to like kind of work in this limited palette. You could do whatever you want in there. But we want to at least have a thread that looks like, okay, all of these skis and snowboards came out this winter.
And when you say collection, and again, I go to museum collection because that's my brain.
I love this. I love this though, because it's my collection. Yes.
Yeah, no, and I love that. But do you have an exhibition? Like once everyone has their boards made, are you guys showing this somewhere for people to see? Or is it the website when you're talking about them being seen together? Is it a formal exhibition, or is it you mean like when someone's scrolling and thinking about what board am I gonna get?
Initially it goes into a product package. So then the company then takes this product package, like here's our lineup, and goes and shows it to REI and Evo and like stores. So you're also kind of showing like, look how good these all look together. It just creates like a really nice cohesion of how you're presenting yourself to the public. Um, I'm having a show, a pop-up show sort of like a release party. So like, yeah, we totally lean into like the fine art. I'm gonna have paintings and pieces from each of the artists that I collaborated with this year with their ski or snowboard next to it. So it'll be like
Right.
showing both because I think that's like really cool and um, you know, to like because we're on an art history podcast, right? Like I love Keith Haring and I love like how the pop shop like it wasn't meant to like separate people from art and I think that like this could like really help someone who maybe like didn't think they were that creative or like that visual art like
Mhm.
kind of like start to feel that way too.
Totally. Yeah,
Like
it's like one of my other interests in research, right, is street art, and that it blew my mind. And I'm going to make this about me. So,
yeah.
but I lived in Spain when I was 17 and I started university over there. And I was blown away by the amount of what I would call like graffiti, which I later learned the appropriate term is street art, because these people that had their shops and their roll down doors, they'd pay artists, or, the city would pay artists to do these huge murals. And I was like, what? Like coming from Arizona, where we paint over anything that like is creative and not sanctioned or supposed to be there, that blew my mind and had me think about art in a different way, because even at that time I was thinking about museums and this, like the formal element of it, like it has to be in an institution to be valuable, however we want to quantify that. And so I agree with you, finding these moments, whether it's a snowboard you're buying or like okay, we'll talk about that in a second, but whether it's like a snowboard you're buying, or, I think about fashion and expression, and there's these ways to find creative practices. But then I will go down rabbit holes when I think about that consumer element, right? Because you're creating a product, and we can argue, and I would argue museums create products too, right? Like their packaging and experience and whatever. But that's like a dirty secret we don't like to tell, right? Like this is different, this is fine art, but does the consumer, I guess because you are the consumer too in this space when we're talking about the snowboards, but how does the consumer inform your process differently than if you were creating for yourself?
Yeah, I think that's I teach a design course to art ed students, and that's the difference between design and art.
Mm.
Is design you are thinking about who your user is,
Mm-hmm.
who your best client is, or who your student is, right? I teach it in the context of like designing lessons for your students. You have to get to know them, and thankfully, like as a working artist, I also find that when I work with brands or companies or organizations that align best with my values, then the voice is just okay there. I know how to create because I know who that user is. I know who's going to buy us. Like, this is the snowboard company that I ride. It's female owned, it's female operated. It's the only one in the snow sports industry
Wow.
like it. There's a bigger community there. So when I'm thinking about my audience, like your question, you know, my audience is skiers and snowboarders like me. They grew up in the 90s and could only get something pink.
Yeah.
And I, as an artist, right, and as a teacher, and just like how I want to like live my creative life, being able to find ways that I could work with the community that I want to like support or I am a part of, then the design process, it doesn't feel like I'm making something for them. It's just like, no, I'm making something for all of us. It feels good for me, and it's also hopefully going to be pretty good for you. Because, not all my ideas are good for everyone. And so there's a fine balance, and I know who's going to ride this snowboard. I'm going to make that snowboard for them. And it happens to be me.
I think that's a beautiful way to think about design. And again, I can only approach it from my my limited lens and my experience in the sector of museums, and my experience as an educator as well. But I think something I've noticed and I don't know if it's recently, this is probably just a side effect of being a human,
Mhm.
is when you're trying to establish an identity as a professional, right? I've experienced this myself where I'm like, well, I'll say yes to everything. I'll create this handout for this institution, even though maybe I don't align with their collection or their management style or stuff like that, right? And it's this balance, or I found it hard to find this balance of getting your name in the door versus working on projects that feed your soul. And I'm taking our conversation as, I mean, you didn't fall into this, right? You did the work, you built the community, and it's going to take that, right? And it is an option versus I'm saying this to all the listeners. Don't do what I did. Don't say yes to things because you're, super worried about a paycheck. You can find ways to be aligned in your work and your personal beliefs, and be successful.
And wear still a lot of hats and always have to think and create. Yeah, no, I think there's definitely going to be a time where you're saying yes to a lot of stuff. Um, just because I feel like when I had more energy, when I was like, like let's just be real. Um, you can say yes to a lot of stuff, but the important thing that, I try to teach a lot of my art ed students is just like keep reflecting on it. Learn something, and then that's going to help you like, narrow in or hone in because there's no way once I got to the point, this last couple years being the creative director, I had to say no to a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you find the thing that it's like, okay, this is what I want to put some energy to, like, you got to make those decisions and you got to kind of get there. And the crappy thing about being a human being is experience is going to be your best tool,
Right.
which is hard when, you're young or you're trying to do a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I try to be as intentional as I can because I really value the work that I'm going to put out in the world. So,
So to piggyback off of that, how would you like people in general to engage with your art?
like all the people,
All the people, you can
I'm
you can define the people, maybe don't define the people. Just, yeah, what are you wanting people, or how, yeah, not what are you wanting to, but how would you like people
yeah.
to engage with, and I know, right, you're in our education and this idea of interpretation, right? This is another thing in museums where we have a historical hiccup, issue, bruise, whatever. Like we were learning, right? And we used to tell people what to think. Like this is the thing the artist was saying.
Yeah.
And as we've progressed, or as we've just moved along this linear timeline that we're all on, we've shifted to the constructivist ideas of engaging with the world. So, do you ascribe to constructivism, like people making their own meaning through your work, or are there certain ways you want people to engage with your work?
Ooh, what a good question. I mean, it's going to come to no shock to any of my art ed students that I hope are listening to this. But when you ask that question, I immediately think of like who are the artists that I aspire to be? Like who have I sort of followed or really been inspired by? And I am super inspired by and try to take lead from Karita Kent. She was a nun, she was an art teacher, she was a social justice advocate. And I guess what I always learned from her and just following her work, like, she has passed, she's in art history. I only can read her books and I can only look at her art is she just like made work. And so I don't think she got so caught up in trying to explain it all the time. She just consistently made really accessible, really powerful, really timeless, right? You can look at a lot of her screen prints from the 1960s and they're still really applicable today and like
On her
social justice,
colors, her
her
color.
color. her social justice messages, her use of everyday imagery combined with really complex social commentary. I think when I want people to see my work is, and this probably comes from that art teacher side of me, is that I think that art benefits us all. I want my teaching, I want my art practice, I want my podcast, I want my writing, I want everything creatively that I do as a human to just like help others move their needle more towards like what makes them creative.
Mm.
And I think that you can do that in snowboard design, right? Like just even having a conversation with you, like you probably were, I would have never talked about snowboards in my life. Like, but like we can think about it differently. And I want it to bring joy. I want it to help people like feel super stoked to get outside just like I feel. And I think that's what all artists are trying to do is they're trying to like convey something that their viewers or their audience can also feel.
Mm.
And as an art teacher, I just think all of my work is this is where it can get really theoretical and really out there, but you know, I don't really think of my work as like these simple singular projects.
Mm-hmm.
I am more of like a missions-based person.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mission, you know, my why, right? Like Simon Sinek, like, what's your why? Why do you do it? It's like, I just want people to be more creative. I want people to connect better with their creativity. More creative humans in our world makes this a better world for me, makes it a better world for you. I don't think anything has been ruined because of more creativity. So I think I'm very intentional and very cautious of like a lot of like the energy that I spend because I always want it to like kind of go towards that bigger why.
Totally. And
Yeah, sorry. And I was just saying, I think Creative Kent did that just by like decades of work and like decades of like inspiring others to do the same.
I really enjoy the idea of a mission, right? And I selfishly like this podcast because you're right. I would never look at snowboards. I would never go in a snowboard shop. I'm sure if I happened in one, what I'd focus on would be the color and design, not the functionality or anything like that. So this is enjoyable for me because it's an experience I wouldn't have otherwise. And I do want to pivot to, we're going to objectify your object. I'm
Okay.
apologize to your snowboard. But when we think about objects, right, and we've heard this story today and this creative process, and we've heard about your mission and all of these things and your connection to the sport of snowboarding and all of this. But why do you think in general people form strong attachments to objects?
Yeah, that's a cool question too. I think that it's important for all humans to connect. And I use connect a lot in my teaching. And connection can be with friends, can be with nature, can be with yourself, can be with strangers. Like there are lots of ways that someone can find themselves in that process of connecting or connecting something. And I think that that's like a very human thing for us to do. And, you know, when I think about objects, I think that objects can kind of be like little portals to that connection.
Love that.
You know, and so if it's a picture that you really value, like what is it connected? It's connecting you to something, right? It's like a picture of like a family member.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's your snowboard, right? It's a physical tool I use to connect outside. But, you know, an object can also be a symbol or something that just like can help you connect in whatever way that you need to connect to be creative.
Mm-hmm. To think about that, this idea of connection, and then we're going to tie it to museums as well.
Okay. Yeah.
In whenever this comes out, I don't know.
Great.
Time is a construct. We don't know where we are.
Hello, us in the future.
Right? But in this like digital world, and I've had meetings recently, and when you're back, you're going to be having meetings about AI as well. So in this digital world where we have AI, we have systems that, and this is a whole other episode and rabbit hole we could go down about, like, these, are they tools? Are they hurting the creative process? But in this space we're in, why is holding on to these physical objects important anymore? Or Or is it? Like, do we need to just let it go? Or
I think, my object's really fun in that conversation because I kind of like all those memes that are like, AI is going to replace me. Like, well, is AI going to replace me going 40 miles an hour down a mountain on that?
you said no.
No, it won't because I look super sick. It's cheesy. Um, but back to my big thoughts. I think it's just being curious and just being creative is always how I want to go into stuff or go into new things. And AI is one of those things. It's a tool. Um, but again, back to my answer, you need more than just your tools to connect to something. So why can't this be an and? I can be super great at AI prompting and using AI to help me, I don't know, organize my calendar. I need help.
Mm-hmm.
I also need help coming up with recipes or, or helping me review a lot of data because I got to review this for my job. And I'd rather open up that time a little bit more so I can actually email students and connect with them, right? So use these things as tools, but at the end of the day, you need to figure out like what is the connection. And so, you know, if you're always thinking that, I think you're going to have an abundance of creativity. Why am I using this tool? How am I using it to connect?
Mm-hmm.
Or, why am I sending this email? Is it like, how is it connecting? Like, they're just like all these things that I think about in all of my practice, like whether I'm teaching or making art or living my life. Like, we need to figure out ways that we can connect. And for me, it's always going to be a visual journal. So, like, I am such a proponent in my art ed courses of like getting students, like, I'm teaching that tool. I'm teaching that analog. I force them, and they can giggle at this because once they realize that after like an 8-week term, they've like filled a journal. There are benefits to and it can be a tool and it can help us value analog better. We can learn online and we can learn with our analog skills. Or what's the and there? I don't think that's the connection piece that I think is really helpful in learning.
Totally.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Hopefully that helps. Everyone wants to always talk about AI, and I'm over here like, I handwrite my journal every morning. Like, I feel like I'm gonna be like such a grandma these days. I'm like, you ever heard of a pen? Um,
Um,
but
yeah. One of our other guests, their object was a pencil, and we went through a spiral of pencils as metaphors. So yeah, there's someone else out there who has a writing implement, but I agree with you. One of my last questions for you, and this is kind of a scenario, if you will. We're gonna role play
okay.
because as I mentioned, I believe it was to Kate, we're manifesting an exhibition somewhere. So
Okay.
if your object were to be placed in an exhibition about personal histories and objects, what would that space look like? And would you have a caption or interpretive text for it?
I think, and us having this conversation and all the stuff that I've shared about my process and Coalition Snow itself,
Mhm.
um, I would want this object to like really speak to like how important it is societally to me. Like, it is, a woman-owned company. It's a woman operated. It's art. It's feminist art. Like, at the end of, like, we're riding it as like skis and snowboards, but the whole company was started to just have the audacity to take space in a male-dominated industry. And I want to be a part of that history of female athletes. I'm not the only girl who's really liked to ski or snowboard, but I think that, the company itself set out to build an inclusive community. It wanted to kind of break the mold of what we see in skis and snowboards, which can help invite someone into that community, can help invite someone who maybe never thought snowboarding was for them, but now they do. And now they have a community that's welcoming them. So, it's an object for fun. It's an object for getting outside. I definitely have a lot of fun on snowboards, and that's super cool. And in a museum, I think it's, what I can add with my artwork to say a bigger conversation about things, to say a bigger conversation about women in sport and who watches female athletes and the importance of, showing up as yourself in spaces that historically maybe weren't for you.
I love that. Okay. I'm
Does
interjecting.
that help with your museum? That would be pretty good, huh?
Let me tell you visually what I'm seeing, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Walk into this space. We're gonna have each objects might have to share rooms, but your section of a room or your own room, the space is gonna be on the wall. There's gonna be a timeline, the history of snowboarding. And we'll learn about the injustice, right? And then coalition is gonna come in and change the vibe, right? And then we'll have interviews in some capacity, either audio or visual interviews with your team, right? And they'll talk to us about it. And then we're going to have all your freaking snowboards, okay? And then we'll have some kind of activity where people, I don't know, like you have to go outside
Design their own.
5 minutes and then visual journal. Like,
this is perfect. This is perfect. I mean, I always envision my board collection for my personal collection myself. I want like a really long, dark Batman hallway.
oh, yes.
And at the end of it is my art studio.
Oh,
But as you step down, it just like bings the lights
yes.
over snowboards all the way down the like hallway.
I love that. I see it. We're going to make it happen.
So I love your exhibition. I love showing how it like blows it up. It's loud. And then, when you come to my private collection and I have just a whole hallway of snowboards, that's the vision I carry.
Yes. I see that for you. It's going to happen. You have 2 designs so far?
I have 3 snowboards. So this current design back here, which I have 2 versions of. This one right here is this winter's.
Okay. Ooh, ooh.
And this one, I know that one's meant to be. That's the name of it.
How cute.
This one's called Nice and Steezy. And then I worked with some really amazing artists. Lisa Cogden, Noelle Fairs, Jitterbug Art, local female artists in Denver and in Portland. And then I did the rest of the designs. So I got to like design skis.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm lying. I'm adding questions.
Okay. I'd say we added more questions. I did all the prepared notes, but I was prepared. So go on, hit me.
What's a steezy?
It's kind of like an adjective for like your vibe.
Okay, and I'm assuming it's good.
Yeah, I have been described as steezy.
Okay, love.
And the vibe there would be I like to wear like extra large jackets.
Okay.
And it's kind of punk, kind of fashionista. I don't know. I like to be really playful and I like to like, be very expressive when I'm on my snowboard. So like kind of having your own expression, your own ride style, could be like steez.
All right.
Yeah.
Learning
and like just riding, like snowboarding is so creative. Like the way people like, there's different ways that people ride. There's like not one version of it. So then I don't know. I just think snowboarding is so creative. I think it's so fun. I'm just honored to like get to snowboard on my own art. So anything from there is like gravy.
Wild. I'm using there's different styles. My brain goes to horseback riding.
There's like, different styles, like
English or Western. Yes, got it. But not at all.
And I'm a little fast and a little loose. So,
Steezy. All right. This is a spoiler for any future RimCAD student I have. I will be incorporating this into my lexicon.
And you said it, it's fine.
Quoting you. My final question for you. Okay. is if you had to choose one word to describe the essence or soul of your object, what would it be?
Flow.
Flow. Amazing.
Mhm.
And I also, of course, I lied to you.
Go on.
One last question for you for engagement, for connection, because we're gonna beat the AI robots. We're
Yeah.
here to stay. Humans win. Spoiler.
Yeah, they do.
If you could share a visual prompt or visual journal prompt for the viewers or listeners, what would you like to encourage them to do after this conversation?
Yes. And first, I'm going to tell everyone, especially a student listening to this, to keep a sketchbook, to keep a journal. Write to yourself, scribble, do what you got to do. It'll do wonders for your creative process. Just take it from your favorite art teacher, Slew. But the prompt that I would give people listening, the humans listening to this one, I think kind of goes to something I talked about a few times of just really feeling dialed, really feeling aligned with this object and this process and this community and culture. I think I want you to journal about or write to your 12-year-old self and ask them what they would be super stoked if you were doing. Like what, like, because I think if I could go back in time and say to 12-year-old Sue, like, we designed snowboards, she'd lose her mind. Okay. So if you're, an undergraduate, if you're recently graduated, if you are 50 and you just want to connect with your younger self, it does like there's not an age to learning about yourself and to learning about what makes you creative. Um, yeah, do a little exercise like that. Like think about what their interests are. Like go deep, start to think about what has always been there. What have I always naturally done? Because when you can align like that, your artwork really comes from a place of your heart. It really comes from you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to end with my fun facts for you.
Yes. I was wondering when they were going to happen. I did want to ask.
All right, because art history, I have to research things to feel like I'm
Notes.
contributing.
Mm-hmm.
My fun facts for you about snowboarding.
Tell
And
me.
don't fact check me, anybody, or do, but nicely correct me if I'm wrong. The predecessor to the modern snowboard was called the Snurfer.
Correct. And it was made on the East Coast.
Oh. I have that it was invented in 1965. And the guy who made it was Sherman Poppen, who bolted two skis together and attached a rope to the front for steering as a Christmas toy for his daughters.
Cute.
Yep, and it's a combination of the words snow and surfer. That's how we got Snurfer. Let's see what else. We'll talk about the Olympic debut.
Okay.
So
Big. Huge.
snowboarding grew in popularity in the 80s and 90s and made its debut as an Olympic sport at the 1998 Winter Games in Japan.
It was epic.
Epic.
I was 10 years old. And those monkeys in the hot tub in Nagano.
Yep. Yep.
I'm
Totally.
just saying, culture is important. Go on.
Let's see, what else do I have? We talked about this a bit, that it was just considered, especially in the 80s, it was seen as a counterculture. And a lot of ski resorts actually banned snowboarding.
There still are a few.
Really?
Correct.
Oh, I don't love that. And then the first companies, two of the most influential pioneers of snowboarding were Burton Carpenter and Tom Sims.
Mm-hmm.
And they were inspired by my other new favorite word, the Snurfer, but wanted to create something more advanced. So they started their companies, Burton and SIMS, in the late 70s. And they were big into like designing the boards and the foot straps and fins in a way that was more user friendly, I guess, or better for the sport.
Correct.
Okay. Is that 4 out of 4? A plus. Those are my facts.
The Snurfer's fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't have like you can't like really like you just have to put your feet on it, so it's kind of hard.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, with that,
Those are awesome.
we've all learned a few new words today. By we all, I mean me, and I'm happy to include them in my life. And I want to thank you so much for your time and for
Thank you.
sharing this connection and your thoughts. And it was great. So,
What a fun prompt to have an object to talk about creativity and process, right? I think that's, it's something we're always trying to do as artists is put words to it. And I think having an object to ground us was a really fun way to do that. So thank you.
of course, we'll chat soon.